What's up, star quality people, star children, universal galactic beings? This is your host, Stevie. We are back with another episode. It is the full moon in Aquarius. Pew pew. I'm wearing a very appropriate full moon Aquarius outfit. Let me stand. You might be listening on audio, but there is a video version of this episode because I'm going to pull up the chart for the full moon. But I got my Grateful Dead alien head looking shirt, tie dye shirt. Tie dye feels very Aquarius Leo access. So I wanted to dig into this full moon we're having, our Mercury retrograde fueled full moon. And before I do, if you are listening to this, thank you for supporting Star Quality. There will be a paywall halfway through the episode for paid supporters, members of the third space. You know who you are. So enjoy this first chunk for free. Please subscribe. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please rate and review. This is also on YouTube. But the full video unlocked version is over on Substack. So starquality.substack.com. And another announcement too is every month I do a Venus Things episode, which is just a monthly recap of my life, what's been going on, things I recommend, whether it's media, food, links of all sorts. But I want to experiment in this Mercury retrograde. And for paid subscribers, I will be taking your questions on Venus things. So whether it is astrology related or general advice, please submit your questions. I'm going to make a thread over in the thread section. I'm going to figure out how to get the questions. Maybe you can just email them. I'll figure it out. But anyways, keep an eye out on that. That's going to be the next phase. But yeah, I want to chat with you about this full moon in Aquarius that we have that is happening Monday, August 19th at 11:26 a.m. Pacific time. I'm going to screen share the chart in just a second, but before I do, what we'll get into is I'll pull up the chart. We're going to look at the themes that are happening and the aspects that are being made to the moon, but also to other planets in the chart. We are getting a lot of information from Uranus yet again. I mean, when we're in fixed season, Uranus is always going to be meddling, but because we have this late degree full moon, it's very there. We're also in Mercury retrograde time, and that is very co-present with the sun. Also, I'm gonna maybe take a peek at some Sabian symbols a little later in this episode. But yeah, that is what's up. Um, Curious how everyone is doing so far in this Mercury retrograde. Feel free to let me know in the comments. My This Mercury retrograde is happening in my third on my south node in my third and second house. And I feel like the third house can be related to like our neighborhoods. And I feel like any little neighborhood thing I've tried to do has had like some stops and goes. Like I went to the library to print something. There was like a sign on the wall that's like, be back in 30. I was like, okay, I'll go run this other errand on the other side of town. I get there. They have a paper sign on the wall that's like also back in 30. So then I ended up doing nothing. But I think what's been helpful in the Mercury retrograde of all is just trying to not put those tasks to the last minute. That one I did, but I knew deep inside, like if I didn't get the print, it'd be fine. Like the risk was low. So I think that's like the way you can work with Mercury retrogrades is like, yeah, if it's like mad important, maybe get ahead a little bit. But if it's things that can kind of be lost to the Mercury retrograde gods, like so be it. Like it's almost like what are you willing what are the willing sacrifices to be to the Mercury retrograde gods? And mine was like, oh, I couldn't get this stationery I wanted. I did an event last night. I did readings at the Synergy Kombucha party, which is really cool. Shout out to Megan Rose for getting me connected. And yeah, and I had this like idea for like, oh, I wanted to print out this wait list and get these stickers that I could put on the readings because I was printing out the charts for folks getting readings. And you know what? Everything went amazing, even without my like little fine tuning details because I had the meat of what I needed, which was my brain, my, the talent that I was sharing with folks and like my channeling, like, I needed that to be sharp first and foremost. And then also I didn't have to take on everything. Like, yeah, I brought like my own little sign and my own this, but it's like when you're working with other people or things, it's just not all on you either. And I think that's the other Virgo Leo lesson is not all of this has to be on your shoulders. And where can we check in with the people in our lives of like where we need them to step up and step in. Let me begin. I came to win something that's a sin. Okay, what am I thinking? I'm singing Jump Around. I am singing Jump Around. Get up, get up, get down. Mercury retrograde. Anyways, so yeah, I think what have you willingly sacrificed to the Mercury retrograde gods? And I'm curious if anyone's had any bigger Mercury retrograde themes that have been showing themselves. But let me pull up this chart and get into it. Okay, actually, before I do that, true Mercury retrograde fashion, I just wanted to share a quote from my husband that I thought was really poignant for this Mercury retrograde. It was his birthday this past week. 815 King, Leo King. Shout out, say happy birthday to Pablo. And we went to one of our favorite restaurants that we go to often for special events. We went at 8:15 and 8:15. I thought that was so cute. But every year at this restaurant at Musso and Frank's, it's like not a real secret. It's like a very known, fabulous, over 100-year-old establishment. And anytime you go there, if it's like an anniversary or birthday, they'll give you a card. They'll give you like a special memento. And this year he got his birthday card, and they just upped. It used to always say like 100 years of Mussos because their 100-year was on in 2019, and now they're 105-year updated stationary. I have a lot of stationary chat in this. Some very my Virgo Mercury third housey stuff. But anyways, so they have this like stationery. They wish you happy birthday. He got his thing like, oh, Mr. Goldstein, here's your birthday card. And he noticed that it was printed, the like emblem was like printed upside down, which I was like, oh, that's cute. Mercury retrograde. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, and he said, because he's a big eBay fan, he said, errors are always more valuable. And I was like, okay, poignant. Okay, like just dropped like some knowledge. Maybe not fully on purpose, but I appreciated it. And I was, we were talking a bit then after about like Mercury retrograde. And I think that's just a good reminder for folks is sometimes those things that feel like fuck ups or errors are actually going to make something more rare and unique and special. My boo is into like finding things that like on eBay that things like that didn't happen. Like he has like a Dodgers ticket from when the big earthquake in 94 happened. So the game never happened. So he has like a ticket for that game. He has this 2020 All-Stars baseball hat, but that game never happened. And so even though, of course, well, for those two things, those didn't happen for various kind of horrible reasons, but also it does add this rarity and value. And I was thinking about that with his upside down accidental printed Musso's card about like, we're a big Pawn Stars fan. If you ever watch Pawn Stars and just being like, oh, this makes this a more rare thing. And it didn't like it just added to like this memory that we built as well. So maybe that's a message you might need to hear is that like sometimes these errors or mistakes or even in like, Japanese philosophy of like the wabi-sabi, like putting things back together that are cracked and then it makes it more unique. There might be some special medicine in there for you. So errors are always more valuable. Quote Pablo Goldstein. Okay, now I'll pull up the chart. Okay, we are now sharing the chart. So again, if you're on audio only medium, that's totally fine, but there is a video component. And yeah, that's just that's just the fact of the matter. Let's take a look at this chart. So I am looking at the chart from being based in Los Angeles. So that affects the rising sign and where the planets are positioned. But adjust to your time zone. That's just going to change the rising. That's not going to change any of the other planets. It's just going to change the rising and what houses they're in for your location. But don't stress too much on it. So we have our Leo sun at 27 degrees of Leo. I'm zooming in here and you can see that we also have Mercury right up there. Just it's Mercury retrograde started in Virgo and has moved back into Leo. There's a whole post about that you can read. It's a written article on my Substack. And then we have the moon also down here. My Zoom is like going so slow, but that's Mercury retrograde for you folks. So to start with this full moon, let's just first acknowledgement is this full moon is not just a sun opposition, moon sun opposition, which full moons always are, but also this moon Mercury opposition as well. So we're having our conscious ego identity, right, with the sun, currently with our mind sort of in this fuzzy, not 100% clear, needing a little more certainty, Mercury retrograde time with Mercury retrograde in Leo. Also, the moon is also getting aspected a square from Uranus. So what does that mean? It means that there is a lot of tension in this full moon. This feels like a real anything that does not go in this full moon, in this current cycle, plus or minus 3, 4, 5 days. I would not be surprised if by next full moon, there's like more information exposed on it, especially just because the Mercury Leo, like there could be a sense of like maybe not knowing what you're signing up for a little bit, possibly. There's also the Uranus of the matter, which is our planet of change in Taurus. There's this whole big fix, almost like basically T-square happening to Uranus, is really signaling that change is inevitable. Change is here. It's here, whether you're here and ready or not. And so it kind of does feel almost like, in a sense, this like, what do you need in order to also like freely create and express, but then also to not feel like maybe like tied down in other people's bullshit. Leo is the pop star of the zodiac. Aquarius is our rock star. And so right now there might be this sense of like, what is it that they've been holding back? Because they both have a lot to offer in terms of course, in like the entertainment sort of senses, but also just in like what they value and that is really getting adjusted with Uranus and Taurus, because since that's related to Venus matters, and we talked about earlier in the Mercury retrograde post that this Mercury retrograde is way more connected to Venus than I think a lot of people are realizing, because it's connecting back to our Venus retrograde story from last year. And so also, not only if the shit from this full moon doesn't get sorted, which is just a reflection of last year's Venus retrograde, then like then last year's Venus retrograde stuff, it's just like gonna keep going until like it's gonna hit a boiling point. Aquarius moon energy isn't really known for being that emotionally available. Aquarius is way more head, when Leo is really heart. So this feels like Uranus is kind of coming in like a referee, being like, I know you want the head, I know you want the heart, but like there should, in theory, be a nice happy medium where we don't have to pick via one or the other, right? Like this job that you're working should hopefully sit well in your head and heart. This relationship you're in hopefully should sit well in your head and heart. This apartment you're living in should sit well with your head and heart. And I think right now there is really this Venus-y changing, like almost like stop theorizing and start just being real. And in terms of Leo and Aquarius, of like what's allowing you to creatively grow and cultivate and expand, versus like feeling like you have to concede and get smaller, because both of these signs want attention for various reasons. Leo, a very proud sign that wants you to see itself or the work it's done or whatever that is, and also having its mind so closely connected to the story, right? Like what ideas our Leo not getting really recognized for, that they're feeling maybe a little bit frustrated about. And same with Aquarius. Like, they bring in Aquarius energy, brings in shit you haven't seen before. Like, they both can really I don't know, like, disrupt the, your regularly scheduled programming. And I think too, if Uranus is also like checking in and like where we've been playing really safe. And I don't think it all has to change today in this full moon. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's wrapping more up by the end of Mercury retrograde, which we're gonna have. I think it ends. I'm looking at my wall calendar, like next week. What, on the 28th? Maybe in 2 weeks. Anyways, I think it's like the 28th or 29th. I have to double check that. So yeah, I think right now with this Uranus, with this Mercury, with the Sun, opposite Moon, I'm going to get into more other aspects that are going on in the chart with different planets in this full moon chart. But with all these players activated, yeah, heart versus head, mind versus body is feeling extremely loud for for this full moon chart. Okay, let's look at some other aspects in the chart and see what else is being being mentioned in this full moon conversation.